and welcome to Libertarian Counterpoint. I am your host, James Just, and with me today is from the Knuckleheads of Liberty, Mr. Leon Brathwaite, and over there typing on his phone is friend of the show, Mr. John Cameron. And,
me?
And author, friend of the show, and author, Mr. John Cameron. I did that all backwards,
No,
John.
that's fine. You mentioned my name like three times.
Three times?
Author 4 times. What kind of press? The thousands of viewers out there. I couldn't buy that kind of PR.
Well, you could, but, not this cheaply. Anyway, as we're talking about some cheap stuff, DEI in schools. It's a big kind of brouhaha today, right? The diversity, equity, and inclusion, which, quite frankly, are 3 useless terms because they mean nothing. What does exactly that mean? But the real question is, does it make students feel unsafe? Because if you have a mission to make everybody feel safe and comfortable, but the activities you engaged in actually make people have to walk on eggshells at their schools, or they're going to feel like they're going to be canceled. Well, you just use the word canceled.
Beaten.
Then are they actually feeling safe? Is your DEI programs actually making, in an effort to make students feel safe, making them actually feel more unsafe?
How short do you want the show to be? All you got to just say yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to go on to the next subject, but no.
But again, just fighting racism, this is going to get Leon on another rant, but fighting racism with racism is only going to lead to more racism, right? It's like 1 + 1 = 2. But John, maybe you should go first this time because
calling this man's precise and erudite use of the English language in support of reasoned facts a rant, it just hurts me.
That's right.
Now,
I have to take this insult.
What I'm fixing to do about it, you can call it rant. But no, Leon can go first, or I'll go first.
No, go ahead, because we'll let Leon's eloquence finish the topic.
Okay.
I've gotten promoted, I see.
Yeah, we got from rants to eloquent. Yeah. So go ahead, John.
So we're. I was trying to think. I actually own a website called the Acronyminator, so I was trying to come up with an acronym that's not, and we as a group came up with one, because what DEI is supposed to be diversity, equity, and inclusion, and what it is actually discrimination. What was the other one? The other E, extremism, and intolerance.
Intolerance, yes.
So, and then we're going to change it around to where it's DIE. Discrimination, intolerance, and extremism. And that's what it is. It's picking one horse and riding that horse over the faces of all the other people and making them feel as if they are less than nothing, that making them feel as if they are born with original sin, and that by the very color of their skin, they are somehow responsible for something that happened hundreds of years before they were born, and that they should feel shame for it and be responsible for it, and somehow reshape their world to now favor those people that were disfavored in the past or are currently disfavored because they are different. They're marginalized, whatever that. Well, you want to see marginalized, try to be a Republican in San Francisco. I mean, it's just, the idea that the current vogue and might makes right and shouting down is just shameful. This is a country built on what? Differences. It's built on people being different and us accepting that they're different.
Different and free.
And free to shout their differences from the rooftops. I put on a freaking uniform and carried an M60 machine gun, 23 pounds worth of M60 machine gun, plus 200. We won't go into that. God, that was heavy. And just to make sure that we could all say whatever foolish or wise things we wanted to have come out of our mouths, and we could, basically worship our religion, even this new and horrible religion of environmental extremism, which is the most hurtful religion I've ever seen. Just you can say whatever you want to do, you can do whatever you want to do, but don't hurt me and don't take my stuff. And these people are preaching that there's only that everybody else is wrong and they are right, and you cannot toe the line. And how can not make the majority of people in classrooms feel uncomfortable and unsafe?
Well, so did the majority. If a lot of them, they were saying, if 3 people's uncomfortable, you have to change the culture of the institution, right? Well, you've got more than 3 people uncomfortable, so now you're going to have to change the culture of the institutions that you just created, right? Leon, the massive hypocrisy of what is happening here.
If you listen to what some of these people are talking about, you will swear we are living through a new version of the Jim Crow South, where people were segregated by race. These people who call themselves these DEI or whatever the hell they call themselves, they are nothing but a bunch of people pushing racist poison and they are pushing it upon our children. And this is the most dangerous part of all of this. They are not educating our children, they are indoctrinating them. And they are trying to make white children responsible for the sins of not even their ancestors, because less than probably 10% of white Americans have slave owners in their ancestry. Okay, it's probably less than 10%. Maybe it's less than 15%. But
probably even smaller than that.
It might be, right? But whatever it is, okay. So most whites. But the bottom line is, though, most whites do not have slave owners in their ancestry. So what they're trying to do now, the whole thing now, this is what they're trying to do. They want people who had nothing to do with slavery, okay, in terms of their ancestry, okay, to pay people who were never enslaved. Okay, so look at me. I'm walking down the street. They're going to suddenly look at me, oh, poor Leon. Leon is a victim. He's a victim of the white man. He's a victim of you guys, as a matter of fact. Because I don't know about you guys, but you guys must have had slavery in your ancestry. Oh, God! That is what these people are trying to say. They're trying to make people who look like me a victim and make you guys criminals for something that happened hundreds of years ago. Well, slavery ended about 160, 170 years ago. Trying to make you guys guilty for this thing and then dip into your pocket to try to pay me. And you know what? I have nothing to do with American slavery. Nothing. Now, I do have slavery in my ancestry, but not in America. So I see why I should become a victim of this slavery. Why? Well, and that is what they're trying to tell us.
I think it's even more evil, if it can be, than that. Because if you look at what's happening is that young people in this country don't even see race. Young people in this country people under the age of like 20 don't even notice. I mean, they don't even put labels on people. You'll talk to them for like 15 minutes before you find out they're talking about a black girl or a white girl, or whereas we would say that somewhere at the beginning of the conversation. It doesn't even occur to them to say that because they're all alike. So what these people are doing basically is trying to indoctrinate the youth who have thrown off the yoke of discrimination that these people carry deep in their souls, because they do discriminate. They do believe that some groups are less than other groups, and it's obvious in all of their policies. They want to make sure that young people carry on this tradition of discrimination so that they can manipulate them in the voting booth.
Exactly.
In the direction that they want. Yes. And that's what makes it so heinous.
Yeah. And they want to keep, oh, go ahead, John, go ahead, yes.
The other part of it is it's the idea, I'll make a deal. You don't be upset with me because none of my ancestors had thought they owned slaves, because you can't own people. I mean, it's a moral imperative. They're not ownable. Just because you held a gun to their head doesn't mean you own them. You just thought you owned them. And I won't be mad at you because your people weren't cannibals. Okay? We'll make that deal.
Well, here's the thing. If you go back far enough, all of us have been slaves and slave owners. If you go back in your genealogy far enough.
Well, the word slave came from the Slavic people who were white people. we always try to make American slavery like it was something unique. Slavery was all in every culture, in every country, in nearly every race and every ethnic background. Slavery was there.
Slavery still exists.
Yes.
In the world today, in some African countries formally,
Some Asian countries.
some Asian countries formally, and chattel slavery exists. And you cannot tell me that in hardcore medieval Muslim countries that women are not slaves. I don't care what you tell me intellectually that I'm wrong about this, but if they can be treated as property, can own property, can be stoned to death for being seen without their veil on or having on and on and on and on. You tell me that's not slavery, and it exists to this day. But the idea that you can somehow pick a date and time and say on the other side of that date you're evil. There's a very nice piece by somebody and I wish I would have brought it with me for the show, about how many white boys died in the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well,
About 1 million of them.
if you're
it was a
trying to-
huge number.
if you're trying to solve institutional racism, you can't solve institutional racism by implementing institutional racism.
Yeah.
It's just not possible. And so it's we're going to have to move on both of us, both here on the show and in the country. You can't you can't solve it by instituting it. It's just you can't do it.
New racism is not going to solve old racism.
But there is some hope, because as John showed, the young people don't see the world the way the rest of us do.
But the schools, but you see, the problem is, even though I agree with John, but the schools is doing their level best to make sure that they do see the world as pigeonhole, like this one is black, that one is white, that one is Asian. They're trying to have these young children see the world that way.
But
that
it's not
is the
just
problem.
race. It's not just race. They want to do it in gender identity.
Okay, yes.
And
okay.
it goes beyond. That's what the DEI is not just about race. It's about this whole reimagining of society. That's kind of what it's about. And some children are actually fighting back. The children back. The Pride event, the exact school escapes my mind, but a school back east
in Massachusetts
had asked their students to wear Pride clothes, to school, and some students didn't want to. And felt that they were kind of forced to, so they actually had a protest where they wore red, white, and blue instead of the rainbow flags, and they did some chanting. And as kids tend to do, some flags were torn down and buttons were thrown on the floor.
Well, adults do a lot of that.
Yeah,
too.
they do it all the time.
If you've watched any of the demonstrations in Sacramento, you'll see.
Where do you think they learned it from?
And
right?
Vitriol. Yeah.
Where do you think they learned it from? They only are doing what they've seen, but eventually there was going to get a pushback, right? Because eventually some of these students who feel unsafe are going to mention that, I don't feel safe, I don't feel heard, I don't feel welcome, and yet you're telling me that we're doing all these things to feel welcome, but I'm not feeling welcome. And so there was eventually going to be a pushback, right? Every action has an equal opposite reaction. It's not just a science, it's a fundamental rule of life.
Yes.
It happens throughout all of life. And so again, what did they think was going to happen? At some point, pushback was going to happen. What did the people who push these kind of things, who are trying to force politicization of our children in schools, right? And then they're complaining that parents and kids are kind of revolting. Well, what did you think was going to happen?
You see. There's this hypocrisy of all of this is what gets to me. Okay. Now this is becoming a story, because these kids, this was in the center of Pride Month, and they were talking, USA is my pronoun and all that kind of stuff and things like that. All the same people who are now getting all upset over what these kids did. I'm not going to condone the kids' actions, okay, but they are getting upset what these kids did. These same people were telling us when BLM and company were burning down our cities in the summer of 2020, they were telling us they were mostly peaceful protesting. That is what they were telling us. Okay?
Gaslight.
Yes.
Yes.
And virtually nobody have gotten prosecuted. There were about 30 people who died during all those riots, about 30 people, and who have been persecuted for that. I think one person, got prosecuted for the murder of a captain in St. Louis or something like that. But overall, look at all the arson that occurred. But they were telling us it was mostly peaceful. But now they want to get so upset because these kids, they didn't burn anything. Okay, fine. They ripped down some flags. They
posters, but and threw some stickers on the
threw
ground.
some stickers on the ground and that kind of stuff.
I'm willing to bet that there was at least as much red, white, and blue stickers torn down and flags torn and T-shirts torn as there were rainbow colors.
Well, that's actually a good. The flag is actually a good place because we're going to have to stop and move on because we've spent way too much time on this initial topic. So we're going to have to move on. But we have a new segment from Mr. Richard Fields. And Richard Field had an interesting perspective on Flag Day last week. So let's take a listen.
I flew my American flag. There was a time when I did not fly my flag. It was a time when I became convinced that the idea of America as an ideal was on its way out. I came of age at the time of the Vietnam War. Flag wavers from the military-industrial complex used flag-waving patriotism to sell the war as necessary to stop communism. It was the domino theory. If Vietnam fell, the Philippines and Australia were sure to go next. It was nonsense, of course, but it sold a lot of weapons for the defense contractors. I bought into the propaganda until I figured out that I would be one of the people expected to kill people from North Vietnam in defense of a largely corrupt South Vietnamese regime. I changed my mind. Similar rationales were used to sell the war in Iraq, this time against radical Islam, and then Afghanistan. And now Ukraine. This time we're waging a proxy war for a largely corrupt Ukrainian regime, which our CIA helped install back in 2014 against the successors of the commies. And always, the wars are lost at great expense to the middle-class taxpayer and at immense profit to the defense industry. As the World War I two-time Medal of Honor winner, Marine Corps General Smedley Butler said, "War is a racket." You might ask, why is war tolerated by middle-class Americans who have to pay for it? Lyndon Baines Johnson, president during the Vietnam War, came up with a way to make that happen. He introduced Medicare and Medicaid, low-cost socialized medicine for the elderly who vote, and the lower middle class, along with other expansions of the welfare state. Normally, guns and butter are too expensive to maintain through taxation for long. But long was extended by the use of inflation as a proxy for taxation. Until now, we have reached a turning point in history where debts have come due. We as a country can no longer afford both a military empire and an expansive welfare state. About 85% of the federal budget is welfare and empire building. We either cut welfare, mostly Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid spending, and warfare spending, or we default on our debt. The easy way out for politicians, both Democratic and Republican, is to inflate the debt away. The way of Argentina, which went from being a first world country to a third world basket case over a few decades. But now a libertarian, Javier Milei, is a contender for the presidency of Argentina. Will something like that happen here? I don't know. If it does, it could take decades. But I am inspired by a lady who lives in the retirement complex where I reside. There are 3 condominium buildings and a set of villas. Every Flag Day, there is a competition among the 4 to fly the most American flags. The lady who leads the effort to get our building to fly the most flags is a former resident of a World War II Japanese internment camp in California. If her belief in the idea of America could survive that, my belief in the idea of America can survive our coming national bankruptcy. It's just money.
Just money, right? You know,
Well done, Richard.
Thank you, Richard. All right, guys, we've got like 8 minutes left, so we're going to go on a kind of a speed round. I got some questions for you.
A speed rant.
We're going, speed rant. Speed rant. Hey, well.
A round and a rant. Go ahead.
You can do a rant, just make it short.
Short rant.
A short rant. Okay.
Short rant.
Yeah.
All right,
Are you calling me short rant?
Well, it's better than a short rat.
Yeah.
So we're going to start with you, John. Is San Francisco a failed city, and is California a failing state?
Yes.
Well, I'd ask for short, I suppose.
You got short.
The idea that you the idea that you cannot protect property yet ask people to live in your community is an idea that has always failed and will always fail. In New York, they had horrible crime, and basically, I don't agree with a lot of things they did because it was all drug war related, and that's a bunch of foolishness. But they started prosecuting the smallest crime, a broken window, the smallest shoplifting, and all the rest of that. And what's happening is they're not prospecting basically organized shoplifting, organized theft, break-ins, car thefts, burglaries, assaults, all the rest of that, and people are fleeing these cities because of it. There are other reasons, but that's primarily, the first thing you got to do is make people feel safe, not by totalitarian, authoritarian, Big Brother kind of state. Just if somebody commits a crime, prosecute the crime.
Prosecute them.
And if it's a non-crime, don't prosecute it. If it's a regulation, don't have police regulations. Have them police crimes, and things will turn. But San Francisco is the first domino.
First domino of California to fail. And we're watching it. The companies and businesses are fleeing. So,
yeah.
Leon, I got a different question for you.
Okay.
Was the California Reparations Committee set up to fail? And I'm asking you this question so me and John don't get in trouble. So.
Okay.
We're already in trouble.
I don't think it was set up to fail, though. I think it was set up for one purpose and one purpose only, which is to gin up black voters for the Democrats, and they're gonna make sure that this issue is gonna continue until the 2024 election, and you're going to hear Gavin Newsom and company and Joe Biden telling about how wonderful these reparations will be. It will solve all the problems of black Americans. And we, the Democrats, we are going to solve your problems for you because we are here. We are always here to help you. Because the Democrats don't care about black people. They don't. Okay, no matter what they tell you, they don't care about black people. They care about the votes of black people. That's what they care about. And that's what this whole reparation thing is all about. Every year, every time, every election cycle, they always hear these things about reparation coming up. The last presidential election cycle, it was Al Sharpton and his that race hustler. He has a organization called the National Action Network or something like that. And every one of the Democratic presidential candidates had to go there and bow down in front of Al Sharpton and say, yes, we're going to do something about reparation. Yes, we're going to do something about reparations. What have been done since then? Nothing. They don't care about black people. Okay, and this has been true since slavery. They don't care about black people. They care about the votes of black people, and that is what they're trying to get.
I'll add 2 cents to that, maybe 3.5.
Well, you got 10 seconds.
Do you remember what Malcolm X said about white liberals?
Oh, yes.
Malcolm X. And I'll let you say it because I can't use the word.
Go ahead, Jet. Come on. You're not going to bother me. Go ahead. Say it.
So Malcolm X said, do not believe the white liberal. The white liberal is and here I'm paraphrasing, the greatest enemy there is of the black man, because the white liberal will use you for his purposes and crush you under his feet.
Absolutely.
That's a slight paraphrase, but
I've got another one for you, Leon, real quickly.
Yeah.
The people in CHOP, there's a business that, that CHOP thing, because I know how you feel about this. There's one of those businesses that supported the protesters, but are now suing the city because the city didn't do anything about the protesters. But we don't want to present a counter message to the protesters. So they're still kissing the protesters' butts while suing the city for the actions of the protesters in the CHOP. This whole thing makes no sense.
I'll be quick. Those guys who lost some of their property and that stuff and still supporting the rioters, they deserved it. I'll be quick.
That's the shortest rant you'll ever hear from Leon right there. But now you guys want to hear a rant from me.
Sure, of course.
You guys ready to hear a rant from me?
Yes.
So the Libertarian Party in Colorado, this is a little inside baseball, has made an agreement with the GOP in Colorado that they said if the GOP decides to run liberty-minded candidates, the Libertarian Party won't run any spoiler candidates in that election. Well, one, why would you make an agreement that says that on actually paper, wrote it out on paper and signed the agreement on paper? Why, as a third party, would you actually surrender what power you have to one of the major political parties? Why would you do that? And two, the new management of the political party, which is included in Colorado, has a problem with a large segment of the libertarian community thinking they are linos. Essentially, Republicans infiltrating the libertarians to help Republicans. And now what you're doing is you're sitting here signing an agreement with Republicans to help Republicans. It's like infantile politics, political thought process, political actions. It's just the dumbest thing I've ever seen. And yet, the worst part of it is they've now given credence to the notion that third-party and independent candidates are spoilers, which in a democracy is simply not true. No one else is entitled to a vote.
It sets up a sense of entitlement that somehow or the other somebody is entitled to your vote. That the major parties are really entitled to those votes that of people who would vote for the libertarians. They are trying to say that the major parties are the only ones who are entitled to the votes of those people who vote libertarian. So we have to prevent that from happening. This is ridiculous. I mean, I can see there's some practicality in the idea of some combination between the libertarian and libertarian-minded Republicans. I can see some practicality in it, but this is really another form of welfare. It's political welfare. That's what it is.
As a county chair, I can understand if you have no libertarian running in a race of recommending the best candidate available, right?
Yes, sure, yes.
We can recommend this guy because we don't have anybody else running.
He's the least worst.
Or if you need to distance yourself from a candidate who is toxic, recommending a different candidate. I can respect that. But what they have done here has completely undermined the notion of what third parties and our democracy. They have simply agreed that this is anyway, I've only got 30 seconds. John, from a fundraiser perspective, how dumb is this?
Pretty dumb, and on the other side is crafty, and I'm willing to bet on the side of the left they make the same kind of deals and always have.
Yeah, the Green Party, yes, the Green Party always has.
Yeah, if you do our green stuff that we want you to do, then we won't run a green candidate and take 13% of the vote. But the bad thing is that we're talking as if it's carved in stone that those two